Hey, how's it going? I have a pretty full compost bin. These are all our food scraps for a little over a week now, and it's starting to get a little bit rotted. So I'm going to walk this bin up the hill to the composting toilet that we have set up and just talk a little bit about how that all works and what the philosophy of it is. The first thing, the main thing to consider, is to be far away from wherever you live, wherever you cook, and any sources of water. So our camp and our kitchen are on the other side of that stream. You can see I've already crossed the stream there, and I'll be walking up the hill quite a way. All right, I've made it to the top of the hill, and you can see behind me this is the composter that we have set up. So it differs from a latrine or an outhouse in that basically everything is above ground, and that's to assist in the composting process. If you have a latrine, every year or two you're going to have someone come and pump it out. You're really polluting the groundwater, and you're not using any of the material. You're having to get rid of it all. Most of my information for this is coming from a book called the Humanure Handbook. It's a very well-researched book. The author has basically been composting, using a composting toilet for 30 years now. A little bit windy here. And it's very well-researched, well-cited, and he has a lot of great input. Now what he does is he uses a bucket system because they have a house set up. So he has an actual toilet in the house that's just a bucket, and then he walks out to his composter in the backyard and empties it there. That's okay. We don't have a house set up, so we're just using this directly. The main things to properly compost human, and one of the points he makes very clearly is to not call it human waste, because if you're going to be using it as compost, then it's not waste. It's only waste when we let it pollute, when we use our drinking water to flush our toilets, then we have to pump out waste, and then we go and place it in a landfill. It's kind of a crazy system that we have, and in general in cities and suburbia. But if you're in the country, you can set up a composter, and in that case it's not human waste. That's why he calls it humanure, using human manure. And the main principle is to cover everything up with a large pile of clean organic matter. So what you can see is basically we're using dirt and leaves primarily. You can use sawdust, and I think sawdust is a really good option. You can use rotting cedar. You can see over there's a cedar tree that has been rotting away, so I've dug some of that out, as well as this kind of mulch on the ground level. It's a combination of roots and dirt, and as well as I think sawdust and bark and things from some of these old trees. You can see there's some tree stumps here that were cleared out maybe 10 or 15 years ago. But anyway, use that clean organic material, you pile that on top, and then that prevents any offensive smells. I've been using this well over a week. Doesn't smell now, and then it aids in the composting process. Once you build a big enough composting pile, it'll start to generate a lot of heat, and it's really the heat that does the composting work. So I think I would really recommend reading the book Humanure Handbook, but something like above 150 degrees Fahrenheit, seems like that might be too warm. Thermophilic bacteria, basically bacteria that love heat, are activated, and they really begin to digest the compost. And the author recommends not stirring your compost pile. And the main reason for that is by mixing it up. A lot of composters think you have to just constantly be mixing and mixing and mixing. You'll actually remove the areas that are currently being heated, currently being digested, and you spread that out, and you can actually negate the effects of the thermophilic bacteria. So instead, he recommends just piling. You can distribute your pile if as necessary. And then the other big aspect is just waiting time. So he recommends 2 years basically of incubation time, and then even in that case I think it's a minimum of 1 year, but at 2 years, even if you didn't get up quite to the recommended heat levels, you'll inoculate the compost pile just by waiting 2 years. It's something definitely to be cautious of. Humanure has the potential to carry lots of waste and bacteria, so I understand people are cautious of it. You need to be cautious. some people are perhaps scared of using it. So I would recommend doing some research and see once you know more if it's really for you. You can see we built this out of pallets, and pallets worked really well for a couple of reasons. First of all, they're free. Basically, any pallets that are damaged or an odd size, companies are usually looking to just get rid of. So Blake's been picking up pallets, and we built this out of 8 pallets, and we basically just repaired some of the portions. While there's a 9th one that we took apart, we used that for miscellaneous boards and to tie everything together. So that was kind of a bit of work. I didn't necessarily have, we just used nails from the pallets, so we had a lot of old, rusted, and blunt nails, but we got it all together. It's very stable. You can see we've anchored it to the tree here, and pallets work well because they allow airflow in, and that's one of the real aspects that you need here. You don't want to be trying to compost below ground or in a completely enclosed facility. You need airflow. So the pallet allows airflow in, but it's also tight enough, these slats, that most animals aren't going to be able to get in there. The first step was to place down a thick layer of organic materials and basically establish a nice base off the ground for any of the liquid to drain through. And after that, as you add things to be composted, every time you want to add a healthy layer of clean organic fill on top. So that's what you're seeing there, and that's what prevents it from smelling and prevents it from usually what people associate with an outdoor latrine, which is a pretty unpleasant experience. To actually use this as a bathroom, I just have a toilet seat here. You can throw it on any of those openings, and it's pretty flexible. We thought about making an actual pedestal for the base. Right now that's not my priority, and it's working out pretty well like this. So you just have one very large pallet for a throne. But you're able to take this, since it's detachable, move it around to any of those openings as it gets filled up. So very simple thing if you're off the grid or if you just want to set up a composting toilet. There you have a nice big pile of food scraps. So then on top of that, we'll throw our clean organic fill, just our leaves and dirt on top of that. That will help it all to compost, as we said. It's just more organic material that will actually compost itself. The author of Humanure Handbook uses weeds and things from his garden as well. Now, that's something I'm a little bit cautious of, because you don't want weed seeds if you're going to then use this compost in the garden in the future. You don't want to be planting weeds, of course, but as long as the pile gets up to a high enough temperature, it will kill off any of the seeds in the weeds themselves. And then that's where the beams will sit running in the short direction of the barn. They'll sit across the tops of those columns.